This content is AI generated for informational purposes only and should not be directly used for clinical decision-making.
Hello and welcome back to the Neurosurgery Hub podcast. I'm Dr. Aris, Senior Attending Neurosurgeon.
And I'm Dr. Alara, Research Fellow. Today we're looking at a fascinating new study from the journal World Neurosurgery, published in 2026, titled Valve Selection and Long-Term Outcomes in Idiopathic Normal Pressure Hydrocephalus, iNPH, a comparative study of programmable shunt technologies.
This is a topic that sits right at the heart of our daily clinical practice. We've seen valve technology for ventriculoperitoneal shunting in iNPH patients evolve considerably over the last decade. But as the authors of this study point out, the comparative clinical impact of specific programmable technologies is still a bit of a black box.
Exactly. We've moved past the era of simple fixed pressure valves, but now we're faced with a choice between different high-tech mechanisms. This study specifically aimed to assess the long-term safety, effectiveness, and complication rates of two specific types: the programmable flow-regulated valve, which they refer to as the FV, and the gravitational valve, or the GV.
And what's particularly impressive here is the timeline. Many shunt studies look at 6 months or a year, but this research group followed a large cohort of iNPH patients over a 3-year follow-up period. In the world of iNPH, 3 years is where you really start to see the wheat separated from the chaff in terms of revision rates and long-term symptom management.
Right, because the initial honeymoon period after shunting can sometimes mask underlying issues with pressure regulation. This study focuses on that 3-year mark to see if one technology truly outshines the other in real-world long-term outcomes.
Let's dive into the technology for a second. For the residents listening, when we talk about a programmable flow-regulated valve, we're talking about a mechanism designed to maintain a constant flow rate, regardless of changes in the patient's upright position or intraventricular pressure. On the other hand, the gravitational valve, the GV, incorporates a mechanism, often a ball and cone, that increases resistance specifically when the patient stands up to prevent overdrainage.
And that's the crux of the debate the paper addresses. The authors mention that while technology has evolved, it has remained unclear which of these two approaches, flow regulation versus gravitational compensation, actually translates to better long-term safety.
Safety in iNPH shunting is largely defined by the avoidance of the two extremes: underdrainage, where the patient doesn't improve, and overdrainage, which leads to those dreaded subdural hematomas or hygromas.
The study's methodology was rigorous in looking at those complication rates. By following a large cohort, they were able to provide more statistical power than the smaller single-center series we often see. They were looking for the clinical impact, not just does the valve work on the benchtop, but how does the patient look 3 years down the line?
It's interesting that even in 2026, we are still refining our understanding of effectiveness. In this paper, effectiveness isn't just about the beat getting better in the first month, it's about sustained improvement and the frequency of valve adjustments.
That's a great point, Dr. Aris. With programmable shunts, we have the luxury of non-invasive adjustments, but the paper suggests that the valve type itself might dictate how often we find ourselves reaching for that programming kit. If one valve technology is more physiologic in its drainage, perhaps it requires fewer interventions over that 3-year span.
And for our practicing neurosurgeons listening, that's a major quality of life issue for the patient and a workload issue for the clinic. If the GV leads to fewer overdrainage complications compared to the FV, or vice versa, it changes our primary choice in the OR.
The study concludes by trying to clear up that unclear comparative impact. While both technologies are sophisticated, the long-term data provides a roadmap for valve selection based on safety profiles and complication rates that were observed over those 36 months.
It's a reminder that as much as we love new gadgets in the OR, the long-term clinical data, the hard outcomes, must drive our decision-making.
Absolutely. This paper in World Neurosurgery is definitely a must-read for anyone performing shunts for iNPH. It really challenges us to look beyond the immediate postoperative scan and consider the 3-year trajectory of our patients.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. I'm Dr. Aris.
And I'm Dr. Alara.
Thank you for joining us on the Neurosurgery Hub podcast. Keep an eye on those valve settings, and we'll see you in the next episode.